Women often don't have roles that are complex and nuanced and fully fleshed out. Often they're there to serve the male protagonist's story. They're there to serve a story which is not their own.
When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult, or I might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Plea is for men to have enough empathy to go see movies starring women, because I've been asked to go see movies starring men my entire life and happily have done so, and I don't know why men don't return the fucking favor.
Rebellion aspect, or this sort of denial, this sort of childish defensive position of not all men are bad and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, we just have to shut up and listen. We need to fix the behaviour of men.
I will be silent, you can't keep me quiet. You
Los boys.
every last one of us. But you're not all boys. So?
Star Wars is very like patriarchal, so it was kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
Cinderella, banned, because, you know, she waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't rescue yourself, obviously. I really like the film, but Little Mermaid. I mean, the songs are great, but do not give your voice up for a man. Hello?
We need complex female characters. Now, before people label me with any buzzwords having an opinion about this topic of woke feminism, if you're a radical feminist watching this video and think you're gonna get uncomfortable, maybe suggest you to not to watch this video and maybe watch another feminist essay videos that might appeal to you. But if you're open-minded, welcome. When I was a child, I was more interested in female characters than today, as I'm growing older as a depressed teenager like everyone else. Back in the 50s and 60s, some characters, not most, women were portrayed as damsel in distress with no purpose or personality, but only plot device to be trophy for the male protagonist. However, some damsel characters like Snow White, who was kind, Cinderella, who was optimistic, Buttercup from Princess Bride, who had agency, same with Princess Leia. We've gone from some damsel characters who are annoying to strong female characters who are overly trying to correct the damsel trope. They purposely strip away a woman's femininity to act like stereotypical men, the same people who lecture so much how much they're against toxic masculinity. Isn't that ironic? I swear to God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this whole strong independent woman trope is making me defend the damsel trope, and every time Hollywood tries to learn their mistakes, bringing back the strength of feminine side in women, they also come to write them terribly, while at the same time portraying how men are horrible sexists, especially white cis straight males. Either you have a feminine heroine who is sexualized or a feminine heroine who is villainized. This overrated artist named Taylor Swift lecturing her own audiences about how it's easy to be a man in society and patriarchy is bad, considering the fact that patriarchy affected negatively not only on women but also men who didn't have the right to choose to go to war, participate in dangerous jobs. By the way, I hope our dear Miss Palama is educated now that females weren't the only sexes doing
too much labor,
child labor, etc. of these hardships that humanity in the past had gone through. Mankind was never black or white, but grey, which is something a lot of radical feminists don't realize. Both men and women had advantages and disadvantages historically. You have the female gaze trying to rebel against the male gaze, which, to be honest, this gaze theory came from a feminist theory in the 1970s, where female gaze is about a man who is dominant and a woman who is submissive. She is sexualized and is an object of desire, which, I mean, men also get sexualized, but a lot of radicals aren't ready to discuss about that. The pleasure and the desire is only for males, but both male and female characters are portrayed objective. However, the female gaze is meant to focus on equal forces between men and women. focuses more on female perspective and less focus on attractive appearance, but more about characters' personality. And the characters are portrayed more subjective and less objective. The female gaze sounds more safe space and decent than male gaze, which, I mean, I have no problem with women having their own perspective in movies or in entertainment media, but this whole myth about male gaze is only about good looks and appeals to male viewers, which contributes to patriarchy, and you can never escape oppression, and female gaze is only about personality that appeals to female viewers, has become a radical idea. I will acknowledge females do tend to be more leaning to emotional intelligence psychologically, but it's natural for both sexes wanting to be attractive, and this is part of human species when we become attracted to someone. Women do tend to be more leaning into creativity, which makeup and dresses is part of that. Since the rise of social media, feminist essay theories on different social media platforms has become so radical that audiences nowadays would need to be worried how characters are going to be represented on screen. I guess female rage is more justified than male rage.
You're a fucking greedy whore who just likes sucking the life out of people!
Me?
Playing my video. Inviting me on the show. You just wanted to make fun of me.
2 policemen are in critical condition. You're laughing. You're laughing. Someone was killed today because of what you did.
I know. How about another joke, Miranda?
When I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi. Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
Equality. Don't get me wrong, males do tend to be more aggressive leading and does become more horrifying than female aggression, mainly because males become more violent when being aggressive compared to females, whereas to females they become more involved in psychological abuse with aggression. Now, before I continue rambling about my opinion on this subject matter, what is feminism? Well, feminism is originally an equal treatment between men and women socially, politically, and economically, fighting for women's rights, making them have a choice in life, and smashing the patriarchy. However, as we move on as a society, feminism in the modern generation come to make more people discuss their different opinions and debates about this movement. The third wave, especially the fourth wave feminism, brought a lot of divisiveness for a lot of people. You have half of people who agree with this movement and are on the other half who don't, and some are in between, which I'm partially in that situation. There's no denying that there are extreme feminists out there making generalized statements without any context or evidence with subjects they talk about, like for example, majority of men are globally bad because men commit more crime. While it is true that males commit more crime than females, statistics don't show that majority of men commit crime. Instead, they show majority of criminals are males, which there's a difference. You also hear this nonsensical things like I hate all men, kill all men, believe all women, etc. These propaganda things they say, which very much leads to woke feminism, where these extreme left-leaning people become the people they claim to hate, and some of these so-called feminists don't represent equality, but toxic feminism that glorifies their narcissistic views. Since social media has affected on a lot of people, same could go for entertainment business, which made a drastic change in the industry. Celebrities seem to be more vocal about their political views than in the old ages of Hollywood. You obviously see people from Hollywood, not everyone, trying to appeal to a group of loud minorities who really are satisfied with any films they watch. Since I've talked about work for feminism earlier, this type of cancer doesn't only affect the political movement, but also the entertainment industry, where not only female singers have this rage towards males, but especially female characters who are overly powered, knows everything, no inner struggles, and entitled about society needs to change, I won't because I know better, don't challenge me because I'm a feminist. The only overly powered character who has inner struggles and relatable with interesting characteristics is Wanda and Elsa. No, I don't know if it's that cringe to say Elsa, but...
going through a struggle.
You also have companies hiring some women for jobs, not because they're good qualified, but for the sake of hiring women, because we always need to hear their perspective than the story itself, what it should be about. The problem with modern Hollywood nowadays is that they fail creativity, they create bland characters that a lot of audiences will not be interested in, and later blame everything on sexism, why their films haven't become successful and men aren't supporting their projects, when in the first place they said shit like,
"Oh, this movie is not for you. It's for the oppressed, marginalized groups, so men need to just..."
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Then why are you blaming that half of your audience are not supporting your product? Let's be clear here. I don't know how many of these people exist in the entertainment, but they are run by activists, not creative people. Same shit with Cleopatra documentary, where the film was not run by historians, but activists. Feminist propaganda very much plays a big part in superhero movies and Disney remakes. I'll shit on the remakes first. Disney is not only remaking movies for the sake of money, but also they need to bring updates to bring modern appeals to audiences and need to disrespect their old projects because our generation doesn't seem to have the same values like they used to. The remake tries to make their Disney female characters progressive when most of them already broke stereotypes, and I'll compare the originals to the remake. Ariel wanted to explore the ocean before she met Eric. She was a disobedient daughter to her family because she wanted to follow her dreams and saved Eric's life in the ocean. In the remake, they had to add extra girl boss layers, not making the male or the female characters equal, but instead they had to degrade a male heroic character in order to uplift the heroine by making a mermaid sail the ship who doesn't have much experience as sailing the ship like Eric did. Eric killing Ursula was more badass than the remake version.
For true love!
Jasmine wanted to marry someone for love. She denied the men in her family making future decisions for her. In the remake, she had to be rebellious, wanting to rule the kingdom, taking her father's place, which obviously she would. Like, if her father died, she would become the queen of Agrabah, considering the fact that she's the king's daughter. And the song Speechless doesn't only refer to the patriarchal sexism of women not wanting to be silent, but also takes the story away from the main character, Aladdin. Aladdin feels like this side character in this movie. Wendy was a mature girl and was motherly towards her brothers and the lost boys. She had nurturing characteristics. In the remake version, they had to strip her femininity away and make her rebellious tomboy who doesn't even desire to become a mother, because apparently being a mother is somehow worse than being a career woman. Belle was charming, adventurous, nurturing, passionate about books. In the remake, they had to make her like her father, Maurice, who's a great inventor. They also had to refer to the sexism in this film that girls weren't allowed to read.
What on earth are you doing?
teaching another girl to read.
In the originals, the reason why the town didn't like Belle is because they didn't have the same interest as her. They found her odd. Not to mention the time Belle was living in, French women were encouraged to read books. Mulan had to take her injured father's place, joining the military where she struggled to fit in with the soldiers. In the remake, she basically has no struggles, no personality whatsoever, and that's how she's so unlikable. This Latina actress who's going to play Snow White, in an interview, she's basically said her character needs no man.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937. Absolutely wrote a Snow White that
She's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
So yeah, nothing new.
I don't need a...
The only good female representation they brought in the remake was Cinderella. Even though they made some changes, they had respect for the classics, which is something what remakes could have at least been doing. There are many problems with Disney Company, but the particular problem is how much they want to give modern updates for Disney princesses, including the animation, because apparently princesses were criticized for being bad role models. Now Disney has to worry about what influence they're going to bring to young girls, and I think if you're gonna continuously focus on bringing feminist ideals to young audiences, there's a possibility where these films will lose the magic how Disney used to make their films, including what princesses mainly represented. And I'm not saying every princess needs to have the same characteristics, but if you're gonna keep portraying this whole idea of strong female narrative, it becomes old, boring. And same thing with what Emily Blunt, including Elle Fanning and Jenna Ortega, said. It was refreshing to hear very few Hollywood actresses start to wake up how unnuanced this is.
They love describing women as like badass, strong, like, and they're always like coming into a room and like they know everything, and it's like, oh, that's a strong woman. It's like, I don't want to watch that. I'm not like that. Like, I love complicated women, and I want to play evil women, and you know, that messiness is like, that's what I feel like I try to bring that into Catherine, because she's not always right all the time.
Also, when you're watching a project, you want to feel like the characters or representatives that you're seeing of yourself on screen are relatable or attainable. And sometimes when you're constantly walking and there's cars blowing up in the background and things like that, it's cool and it's awesome. It looks beautiful, but I don't know anything about her. So it's hard to develop some sort of admiration or connection with women when they're written very two-dimensional. And
I'm going to talk about the MCU heroines. This is not only with superheroes, but Hollywood in general, where they didn't only focus on female leads, but also want to bring inclusivity with female leads, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, Hollywood at times writes them terribly or use them as tokenism for the sake of representation. You have America Chavez, who's a Latina lesbian. For some reason, they had to focus on her backstory when she was used as a plot device in Multiverse of Madness. Miss Marvel, a show about Kamala Khan, who's a South Asian Muslim. I'm the target audience for this, so was focusing on breaking stereotypes of Muslims, the accuracy of the culture, but less about the hero's journey. Captain Marvel was one-dimensional tomboy character for the sake of being strong. And lastly, I'm gonna ramble a lot about She-Hulk. Was one of the most frustrating shows I have watched. The show was meant to be a comedy. It wasn't really funny. And empowerment for women. Jennifer is a brat, just like Regina George, who represents toxic femininity. She-Hulk is not only brave and strong, but also a victim. Why, you might ask? Well, she's a woman. And the men in the show are portrayed unworthy and misogynistic, except Daredevil because he's hot. Considering the fact that she compared her catcalling experience to her cousin Bruce, who's gone through chaos in his life. Want me to give examples? His father, who's a wife beater, abused him and murdered his mother in front of him as a child. He became a Hulk mainly because he has to re-experience the trauma from the past, which becomes part of his aggression. He was enslaved on another planet for 2 years. He lost the people he loved battling against Thanos. But no, Jennifer has gone through worse because she has a vajayjay. It's pretty ironic how some writers portray their female characters and how progressive feminist they are, while at the same time, they portray male and female characters unequally by degrading men for the sake of uplifting women, which is very unfeminist, by the way. The same people who are against the idea of women being inferior to men are the same people who are portraying the stereotype that men are evil and women are saints. The same people who are against the idea of women being bossy are the same people portraying her character like she's entitled of everything without having any class or experience. The girl boss in the 70s to early 2000s used to have a decent trope. I'm not saying that they were all great. There were some flaws with it, but however, the characters didn't only have flaws, but they knew their strengths, and some of them may be tomboys, but on the other hand, they weren't afraid of their feminine side. After all, those were the classic times. With modern girl bosses, not only they're annoying like Umbridge, but these characters are more stereotypical than the classic version of girl boss. The characters are shallow and forced to have masculine traits. I'm not saying it's bad for female characters to have masculine side of them, but the idea that the entertainment builds that for feminine side of women is weakness and having motherly roles somehow is bad and always patriarchal is very degrading to portray. And look, if you're a child-free lady, it's not a big deal if you don't want to have children. I'm not saying every female characters need to be parents. The only female characters that were done well recently, not only in my opinion but from many people, and these are the films that I've watched, is Vi and Jinx from Arcane, Spider-Gwen from Across the Spider-Verse, Wanda from WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness, even though the movie had some flaws handling her character, Ahsoka Tano from Clone Wars Season 7, Mirabelle and other female characters in Encanto, Datiri and a few other female characters from Avatar 2, Nezuko from Demon Slayer, Pearl, and 11 from Stranger Things. These are the types of characters that actually have complexity and aren't one-dimensional and do make the audience invest in these characters. If you look at Arcane, this is a non-spoiler by the way, the animated show was not only very progressive leaning with characters but also handled the film's political themes in a rightful way, looking at different perspectives from the characters and the events in the show, which a lot of political films fail to do. This debate is not only talked about in the entertainment media but also in political discussions about the movement, whether modern feminism in the West is either genuinely about equality or man-hating or something else. Me personally, I would say I don't know what it represents today, since feminism is in a spectrum rather than having objective takes what feminism should represent. And look, if you guys disagree with me, that's fine. I know some parts of the things I said in this video is probably sensitive to you guys, but I just wanted to share my opinion on this topic. After all, I really do believe being a woman in the West is very a privileged place for us to live in, compared to women in the Middle East or other countries where their experiences is completely the opposite to ours. But other than that, I hope you guys like, subscribe, and all that. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.